every night's like every other night.
No, not tonight.
What's different?
I don't know. Something in the way my heart beats. As if something very good were going to come out of tonight.
They were Hollywood's most explosive couple. Frank and Ava fought hard and loved harder. But in November 1952, she said something unforgivable. After secretly ending her pregnancy, Ava said the 9 shocking words. When he learned the truth, Sinatra broke completely. He swallowed sleeping pills, he slashed his wrists, although he sent her flowers every year even after the divorce. But those 9 cruel words stood between them like a wall neither could climb. Ava Gardner was born on Christmas Eve, 1922, in Grabtown, North Carolina. She didn't like sharing her birthday with Jesus. She later wrote, "It was a long time before I forgave the Lord for that." She was the youngest of 7 children, born when her father Jonas was 44 and her mother Molly was 39. They weren't rich, but by local standards, they were doing well. Jonas owned a tobacco and cotton farm, a sawmill, and even a country store. Their house was one of the biggest around. Still, it didn't have electricity, running water, or even indoor plumbing. Ava grew up in the Baptist church. Her father had helped build it, donating timber and labor. As a kid, she was always barefoot, walking the farm fields, helping with tobacco from the moment she could stand. She worked beside her father, curing tobacco leaves late into the night. Her one pair of shoes was saved for special days. That barefoot feeling would stick with her forever. Even as a Hollywood star, warm dirt under her feet brought her peace. But those early years were hard. When the crops failed and the boll weevil hit, they lost everything. The family became tenant farmers on land they once owned. School wasn't any easier. Ava wore hand-me-downs and got teased for it. Then came another blow. In 1934, when Ava was 11, the school where her mother worked shut down. The family moved to Virginia and opened a boarding house, but her father got sick. Every day after school, Ava visited him at Riverside Hospital. She read him the news, especially stories about President Roosevelt. Jonas never complained, but his health kept slipping. On March 26, 1938, he died from bronchitis. Ava was 15. His death crushed her. She didn't fully understand the loss until years later. She once broke down crying at Grace Kelly's wedding just from watching a father walk his daughter down the aisle. "If only I had a father like that to lean on," she whispered to herself. After the funeral, Ava and her mother moved back to North Carolina. Molly ran another boarding house. Ava tried to stay focused on her future. In 1939, she finished high school and went to Atlantic Christian College. She studied typing, shorthand, and business writing. Her goal was to become a secretary. It was a sensible job for a poor girl with no connections. Acting never even crossed her mind. She had no training, no stage experience, and such a thick Southern accent that no one outside North Carolina could understand her. But that all changed during a summer visit to New York City in 1940. She went to see her older sister, Bappy. Bappy's husband, Larry Tarr, was a professional photographer. He took some portraits of Ava to send back to their mother. One of those photos, showing a quiet, striking beauty, ended up in his studio window on Fifth Avenue. A young legal clerk from Lowe's Theaters walked by, saw the photo, and made a comment that someone should send her info to MGM. Larry did exactly that. He stayed up all night making prints and sent them to MGM's office in New York. They were stunned. MGM invited Ava for a screen test. It wasn't a real audition. She just walked, turned, and arranged flowers. They didn't even bother recording her voice. Her Southern drawl was too heavy to understand. But when studio boss Louis B. Mayer saw the footage, he said, She can't sing. She can't act. She can't talk. She's terrific. MGM signed her for $50 a week. That's about $985 in today's money. On August 23, 1941, 18-year-old Ava arrived in Hollywood with her sister as a chaperone. She had one cardboard suitcase, one pair of shoes, and zero experience. Her contract included a sneaky clause allowing MGM to cut her pay to $35 a week for up to 12 weeks a year. Studio exec George Sidney described her as a good piece of merchandise. That's how they saw her, not as a person, but as a product. Between 1942 and 1945, Ava appeared in 17 movies. Most of her roles were forgettable. Sometimes she had one line, sometimes none. She played girls at parties, dancers, socialites, extras walking down the street. She later said, "I was wallpaper." Meanwhile, MGM sent her to endless photo shoots. They dressed her in swimsuits and lingerie and sent the pictures to magazines for the boys overseas. She was famous for her face, not her talent. Behind the scenes, MGM was trying to shape her. They put her in speech lessons to erase her accent. They taught her how to sit, stand, smile, and walk like a refined lady. Stylists fussed with her hair and makeup constantly. Ava hated it. She was so nervous in front of the camera, she sometimes drank just to calm down. Real acting lessons were rare. Only actor Charles Laughton ever took the time to actually help her. Gregory Peck once suggested she try stage acting. MGM said no. They wanted her to play leading ladies, but she wasn't ready. Then came her first real shot. In 1946, Ava starred in Whistle Stop, a noir film about a woman who comes back to her hometown and gets caught in a love triangle. George Raft played her love interest and recommended her for the role. Critics could still see her inexperience, but she showed real potential. The movie got decent reviews. For Ava, it meant something big. Someone finally saw her as more than just a pretty face. One of those people was producer Mark Hellinger. He watched Whistle Stop and immediately wanted her for his next movie. That film was The Killers, based on a short story by Ernest Hemingway. Universal paid MGM $1,000 a week just to borrow her, for 7 weeks. Ava herself was making $200 a month. That's how badly they undervalued her. The Killers came out on August 28, 1946. On its first day, it earned $10,341 in one theater, $3,000 more than any film had ever made there. It was a sensation. It got 4 Oscar nominations and made Ava a star. Her role as Kitty Collins, the seductive and mysterious woman at the heart of the film, defined her screen image for years to come. Even Hemingway loved it. He kept a copy of the film at home and showed it to guests. He said Ava captured exactly what he had imagined: a woman who was sexy, but also sad, dangerous, but also soft. He even pushed for her to be cast in more adaptations of his work. Still, MGM kept her on a short leash. When Gregory Peck asked her to join a stage production, MGM blocked it. The reason? It wasn't a lead role. That kind of control made it hard for her to grow. But Ava found ways around it. In the 1950s, she took on bold, diverse roles: mythical figures, duchesses, noblewomen. She wanted people to see her range. Even in The Barefoot Contessa, where she played a glamorous dancer-turned-movie star, Ava insisted on adding layers of pain and ambition beneath the glitter. A major turning point came in 1953 with Mogambo. Director John Ford didn't even want her at first. He had Maureen O'Hara in mind. Ford was harsh, and Ava called him the meanest man on earth. Things got so bad during filming in Kenya that Clark Gable walked off set after witnessing a heated clash between them. But somehow, by the end of filming, she adored Ford. And despite the chaos, Mogambo became a major success. It cost $3.1 million to make and earned $8.3 million. More importantly, it earned Ava her first Oscar nomination. Critics praised her charm and depth, and she nearly won the New York Film Critics Award. She lost the Academy Award to Audrey Hepburn, but it didn't matter. She had finally proved herself. Off-camera, Ava and Grace Kelly became close during that shoot. They shared bootleg champagne in a tent in the middle of Africa. After that, no matter where Ava was in the world, a birthday gift from Grace would always arrive. Then came The Barefoot Contessa in 1954. It was filmed in Rome and around Italy, and it made her an international icon. MGM loaned her out for $200,000 and 10% of the film's gross, over $1 million. The studio made $1 million off the deal. Ava got $60,000. The film turned her into the world's most beautiful animal, a title she hated but couldn't escape. She played Maria Vargas, a dancer-turned-star, a character inspired by Rita Hayworth. The film's tone was moody and mysterious, and it didn't always sit well with critics. Bogart, her co-star, didn't like working with her. He said she gave him nothing to work with, and he'd even flub lines to force retakes. But Ava knew the truth. This was her movie, not his. Despite the tension, Contessa had its fans. French filmmaker François Truffaut praised it. Fellini drew inspiration from it for La Dolce Vita. Ava's performance, sultry but broken, became the blueprint for a new kind of female lead. Glamorous, yes, but also aching, real, and human. 2 years later, in 1956, she took on Bhawani Junction with George Cukor. This time, she wasn't just a beauty queen or a glamorous starlet. She was Victoria Jones, an Anglo-Indian woman caught between cultures, love, and war. The film had a massive $3.6 million budget and was shot partly in Lahore, Pakistan. The conditions were brutal, hot, chaotic, and emotionally draining. But the role pushed her deeper than anything before. She admitted that this was one of the few times she truly connected with a part. Cukor saw something others didn't. He later wrote to her, "No matter how often I rerun this bit or that, I'm never bored with it. The more I see it, the more depth I find." Critics agreed. Newsweek called her surprisingly effective. The New York Times praised her intense emotional range. Cukor said she was complicated, intelligent, fatalistic, desperate, but magnetic. He called her a creature of great fascination. And in one moment that stuck with her forever, he paid her the ultimate compliment. Ava is a gentleman. Meanwhile, Ava Gardner was falling in love with different men all along. It all began in 1941. Ava Gardner had just arrived in Hollywood when she met Mickey Rooney, the biggest star in America at the time. On her second day at MGM Studios, she saw him dressed like Carmen Miranda for a movie. He was short, she was tall, he was 21, making $5,000 a week. Over $90,000 in today's money. And he was obsessed. He called her every night for 2 weeks. She only agreed to dinner if her sister could come along. But he wasn't subtle. Mickey was loud, funny, and always performing. He sent gifts. He showed up everywhere. And eventually, he gave her a 6-carat diamond ring. People whispered that America's favorite boy next door was determined to marry this new, shy beauty. And he meant it. He told his friends, "I'll marry her no matter what." Ava was 19. She'd grown up in rural North Carolina. She was a virgin, and she didn't care about fame. Mickey, on the other hand, wanted everything right away. But MGM didn't like the idea. Their golden boy getting married might hurt ticket sales. So they had to ask studio boss Louis B. Mayer for permission. He agreed, but only if the wedding was quiet. On January 10, 1942, they married in a small church in California. Ava wore a blue suit with orchids. No white dress, no dream wedding. MGM later staged fake photos to make the marriage look perfect. But it wasn't. The trouble started instantly. Mickey left the morning after the wedding to play golf. Ava was heartbroken. He drank. He chased women. He gambled. He partied. He had no interest in being a husband. Ava, still just a teenager, was overwhelmed. 7 months later, it all fell apart. She filed for divorce, claiming mental cruelty. The divorce became official on May 21, 1943, the same day Ava's mother died from breast cancer. Years later, Ava admitted that Mickey had one redeeming moment. When they visited her dying mother, he danced, sang, and made her laugh. It was the one thing she never forgot. That same year, Howard Hughes entered the picture. He was 43, she was 21. He was rich, brilliant, and completely unstable. He pursued her obsessively. They fought constantly. One night, during a heated argument, he punched her. She smashed an ashtray over his head. Blood was everywhere. She thought he might be dead. MGM helped her escape the scene, but Hughes woke up the next day and asked her to marry him again. He bugged her home. He followed her. He once burst into her bedroom at night, certain she was cheating. He smelled bad. He dated teenage girls, but he kept chasing Ava for 20 years. In 1945, she married again, this time to bandleader Artie Shaw. He told her she was perfect. Then, the moment they were married, he tried to change everything about her. He mocked her taste in books. He threw her favorite romance novel across the room and told her to read Dostoevsky. He made her go to UCLA. He lectured her on politics and psychology. She felt stupid around him, so she took an IQ test. Her score shocked her. It was high, but it didn't stop him from treating her like a project. He even hired a chess master to teach her. When she beat him in 15 minutes, he never played again. They divorced exactly 1 year and 1 day later. After the divorce, Ava leaned into the Hollywood life. She drank gin, tequila, martinis, and Mai Tais, often all in one night. By 1945, she was smoking 3 packs of Winston's a day. She got banned from hotels in Madrid and New York. She even urinated in the lobby of the Ritz. She was wild, beautiful, and unstoppable. Once, in Rome, she dragged Grace Kelly into a brothel just for fun. When they left, Grace was kissing a stranger in the back seat of a cab. MGM tried to control Ava's image, but the more they tried, the wilder she became. Shaw hadn't just insulted her, he broke her. After him, Ava started drinking more and more. Her nights were filled with giant martinis and champagne glasses, wine, then scotch or bourbon at nightclubs. She said she didn't know how they survived it. The alcohol dulled the pain, but it also deepened her depression. She began to believe she didn't deserve love. Her drinking got so bad that film shoots had to be scheduled early before she got too drunk. In the years between Shaw and Sinatra, she had an affair with Robert Mitchum. He was married. She didn't care. "I was crazy about him," she later confessed. Even when she started seeing Sinatra, she kept seeing Mitchum. When she told him it was getting serious with Frank, Mitchum warned her, "That guy's dangerous." She didn't listen. The triangle ended, But the chaos was just beginning. Mitchum later told friends she was the most beautiful, self-destructive woman he'd ever known. It was true. Ava chased danger like it was her destiny. Then came Frank Sinatra. They met by accident. It was 1943, inside a dim nightclub, and Ava Gardner was still married to Mickey Rooney. Frank Sinatra was 27 and already famous, but married too, to Nancy Barbato. Still, when he saw Ava, he was struck. "Hey, why didn't I meet you before?" he whispered. The spark was instant, but neither of them acted on it. Not yet. A few years later, Ava joined Frank's celebrity softball team, the Swooners. She was just the Batgirl. He played second base. The pull between them was real, but they stayed apart. Both were still in their marriages. Sinatra had once seen Ava's photo in a magazine and told his friends, "I'm gonna marry that girl someday." But when they finally met, Ava didn't swoon. She thought he was full of himself, arrogant, overpowering. Still, something kept drawing them back together. In 1949, it finally happened. They saw each other again at a party. Ava was 26, Sinatra was 33, and his career was crashing. He wasn't selling out shows. His voice was giving up. But that night, he showed up with a martini in hand, a soft smile, and those famous blue eyes. Ava remembered it clearly. Frank Sinatra could be the sweetest, most charming man in the world when he was in the mood. That was the night their affair began. It wasn't just a fling. Sinatra was obsessed. That same year, he recorded a private demo of "You're My Thrill" for Ava. Only 3 copies were ever made. One stayed in Ava's personal record collection. But there was a problem. Frank was still married. He had 3 kids at home. Then came Valentine's Day, 1950. Frank told Nancy he wanted a divorce. It shocked everyone. Catholics didn't do divorce, especially not in public. Ava didn't wait around. She once forced him to drive to his house and call Nancy in front of her, just to say it out loud. "I want a divorce." Nancy refused at first. She was trying to save her marriage. They had kids, Nancy Jr., Frank Jr., and Tina. But the gossip columns tore into them. Hedda Hopper, Luella Parsons, the Catholic Church, his fans. Everyone turned on Sinatra. The divorce finally went through in October 1951, and just 72 hours later, on November 7th, Sinatra married Ava Gardner. She wore a mauve cocktail dress and carried camellias and carnations. Only a few family members were there. They tried to escape the photographers, but they couldn't hide. Their love was everyone's business now. But it wasn't equal. In 1949, Ava was a star. Sinatra was a has-been. He'd lost his voice from singing too much. Columbia Records dropped him. His agent dumped him. His TV show got canceled. Even MGM let him go. It crushed him that Ava was the one making money while he was fading. His pride took hit after hit. Ironically, it was Ava who saved him. She helped him land the role of Maggio in From Here to Eternity. It brought him back to life. He won the Oscar, but it didn't fix them. Ava once said it wasn't work that made them jealous. It was each other. Their scandal was a media circus. Ava got hate mail. People called her a homewrecker. Letters poured in, full of cruel words. Sinatra's fans turned on him, especially the women. They had loved his family man image, and now they saw him as the guy who left his wife and kids for a starlet. Even the church condemned him. The press tore them apart, and the industry followed. By 1952, Sinatra had no recording deal, no films, and no fans left. But they didn't care. They got married anyway. She was 28. He was 35. And 10 days later, they were in Nairobi, Kenya, celebrating their first anniversary during a flight. Ava was filming Mugambo there. She wore pearls and a blue travel suit. They tried to look like a normal couple, but nothing about them was normal. They were both fiery, jealous, and drawn to chaos. The drinking was constant. Gardner once said they'd down 3 or 4 big martinis every night, then move on to wine and hard liquor. Their fights were public, brutal, and often ended in broken glass or broken promises. Things truly fell apart after Gardner had her second abortion in November 1952. This one hit harder, not just because Sinatra didn't know about it at the time, but because of what she allegedly said afterward. In London, recovering from the procedure, she was overheard saying something that would become one of the most chilling lines in Hollywood history. "I hated Frankie so much. I wanted that baby to go unborn." The words came from a vulnerable moment, but they carried a knife's edge. They weren't about fear or timing or career. They were about hatred. When those 9 words finally made their way back to Sinatra through Hollywood's gossip pipeline, they shattered him. The marriage had already been in trouble, but this quote turned heartbreak into something darker. Friends say Sinatra was broken-hearted when he first found out about the abortion. But this felt like betrayal at the soul level. Just 3 weeks after their public separation, on October 29, 1953, Sinatra tried to kill himself. He was found in an elevator in his Manhattan apartment building, his wrists slashed and bleeding. It wasn't the first time. Earlier that year, after seeing Gardner in Africa and learning about her affair with Spanish bullfighter Luis Miguel Dominguin, he had also tried to end his life. That time, he imagined her green eyes watching over him in the hospital. But she never came. Sinatra's depression ran deep. He once called himself an 18-carat manic depressive. After arguments with Ava, he'd swallow sleeping pills or crank up the gas in their home and wait. Once, after a fight at the Cal Neva Lodge, he downed a dangerous mix of pills and liquor. The November 1953 attempt was his worst. His friend Jimmy Van Heusen found him just in time. Sinatra survived, but barely. And all the while, Ava was drifting further away. After filming Mugambo in Africa, instead of going back to Sinatra, she flew straight to Spain. There, she began a highly publicized affair with Dominguin, Spain's most famous matador. In June 1954, she filed for divorce while still married to Frank, and still dating Luis Miguel. The press had a field day. Sinatra, already crumbling, was now publicly humiliated. Spain wasn't just a fling for Ava. It became her escape. She had first visited in 1950, but after her marriage collapsed, she moved there for good in 1955. The country gave her freedom and passion. She fell in love with the flamenco music, the bullfights, and the late-night energy. In Spain, she could go barefoot, just like she did in The Barefoot Contessa, a role that eerily mirrored her real life. Her romance with Dominguin only added fuel to the media frenzy. While Frank was scraping his career back together with From Here to Eternity, Ava was building a new life, one that had nothing to do with Hollywood or him. But despite everything, the divorce wasn't finalized until July 1957. For 3 years, they were locked in a strange limbo. Gardner lived with Dominguin. Sinatra kept working and hurting. Even after the papers were signed, they stayed connected in ways neither could explain. For nearly 20 years, Sinatra handled Ava's finances like a man still married. As late as 1976, 19 years after the split, he was still overseeing her money. Not just the big stuff, but everything. Ava never asked for help. She earned well after leaving MGM in 1958. But Frank couldn't let go. It wasn't about the money. It was about her. In the 1980s, Ava's health began to crumble. That's when Frank stepped in again. She had the money to handle it herself, but he insisted on helping. He paid $50,000 to fly her from London to Los Angeles to see a top medical specialist. At first, Ava said no. She was proud. But Frank wouldn't take no. He paid for a medically equipped private jet. He just wanted to make sure she got the best care. By 1986, she had suffered a stroke. Half her body was paralyzed. She needed oxygen to breathe. Through all this, Frank stayed close. Quietly, but fully. People around them could still see what they had. Ava once called Frank the love of my life, and Frank never stopped saying he loved her. Every day during their relationship, he sent her a telegram, even when they were on opposite sides of the world. She found those telegrams years later. They filled an entire suitcase. He married others. So did she. But the tie between them never broke. Even in the 1960s, while married to Mia Farrow, Frank called Ava to say she would always be his only real love. In 1965, while filming in Rome, he invited her to his villa. Friends said he was trying to win her back. Ava never stopped holding on to those moments. She kept a photo of the two of them beside her bed until the day she died. And every year after their divorce, Frank sent flowers, always. In 1968, Ava moved from Spain to London. She was facing tax problems and wanted a quiet life. She bought an apartment in Knightsbridge, number 34, Ennismore Gardens. She filled it with Asian decor and carved out a peaceful space far from Hollywood. Her assistant called it cozy, with big chests, screens, and soft chairs by the fire. Ava didn't go out much. She liked staying home with her corgis, eating dinner made by her housekeeper Carmen. When she did step out, it was for ballet, theater, or a quiet drink at the Ennismore Arms. After her stroke in 1986, she avoided most phone calls. But not Frank's. When he called, nurses held the phone to her ear. He did all the talking. He'd tell her he loved her. That growing old was terrible. Even when she couldn't answer back, he kept calling. In May 1985, Ava flew back to the United States for what would be the last time. Then, on January 25, 1990, she died in her sleep at age 67. The cause was bronchial pneumonia. Her last words were, "I'm tired." 4 days later, over 300 people gathered in Smithfield, North Carolina. It was cold and drizzling as they laid her to rest beside her family. As she had asked, her grave was marked with a simple footstone. Frank didn't attend, but he sent a wreath. The card simply said, "Francis." That's what she had always called him. Some said the flowers were yellow roses, her favorite. Others said they were pink. It didn't matter. What mattered was that he remembered. Her sister Myra cried through the entire ceremony. Beatrice, the other sister, was too ill to come. She passed 3 years later. A local reverend gave the eulogy. He said Ava wasn't a saint, but she was real. She loved her roots. She never pretended to be anything else. Ava's estate went to her sisters, just like she planned in 1986. When they were gone, the rest would go to charity, places like St. Jude's Hospital and the Ava Gardner Museum. Her story ended far from Hollywood, but it had started even farther away, in the tobacco fields of North Carolina.